Welcome back to another episode of SpitBallin. I'm your host AJ, and alongside me today, my co-host Christian is back. And on this episode, we will be discussing the major news that occurred that Aaron Rodgers is returning for what could be his final year. The NFL schedule release, which happened this Thursday. We saw teams put out their hilarious videos, and also some teams put out some not so great lackluster videos. We will be discussing some of the ones that stood out to us as great and bad. We're not going to get into all 32 videos as it just doesn't seem like it's that important to cover all 32 when some of them were just not even that good and they weren't even that bad. They were kind of middle tier. So we're not going to hit those middle tier ones, but we will be discussing the best ones and the worst ones. And as we started last week for coverage of the NBA playoffs, we spoke about the playoffs where they were at last week and the draft lottery that occurred during that week as well. We will be focusing solely on the playoffs, though, now, as we will talk about the draft when that occurs in June for the NBA. But diving right into it, Aaron Rodgers back in Pittsburgh on a one-year, $23 million deal. I believe that, as I said last week, Aaron Rodgers gives the Steelers the best chance to go win a Super Bowl this year. The Steelers, besides Aaron Rodgers, have Mason Rudolph, Will Howard, and Drew Aller at the quarterback position. A lot of fans want to see Will Howard get in there, as he had a whole year sitting under Rodgers, and people believe that he is ready. Mike McCarthy does love him, is what the rumors are saying, so we will see what happens with Will Howard this year, even with Rodgers being there. However, I think Rodgers will be starting the entire season unless he gets injured. And I do think if you look at this from a future perspective and current perspective, the Steelers have a lot of old guys on the team, and Cam Hayward, TJ Watt, Jalen Ramsey, DK Metcalf, Michael Pittman's getting up there even. Jalen Warren's not as young as he was when he broke out with the Steelers. The team is getting older all around, and you need a veteran quarterback that has shown he could do it, like Aaron Rodgers, I believe, to go win the Super Bowl, which is why from a current standpoint, this is your guy, I think, if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers. And however, from a future standpoint, this is setting up the Steelers for, my opinion, an extremely bright future, hopefully. Will Howard already had a year under Aaron Rodgers, the four-time MVP, and got to learn from him. He will now most likely have another whole year of sitting under him unless there's an injury and learning from him once again. The Steelers also selected Drew Aller in this past draft with their round 3 pick, and now he'll have an entire season getting developed by Mike McCarthy and sitting underneath Aaron Rodgers. I believe that the Steelers are setting up the future of their franchise perfectly, and next year, I don't believe Aaron Rodgers will be back for a third year at the Steelers. That would be pretty shocking. But going into that now, first year post-Rodgers, the Steelers will have 2 quarterbacks, one who sat under Rodgers for 2 years, and one who got to do it for 1 year. And we'll see a QB battle between, I believe, Aller and Howard. And my prediction is that Howard will end up winning that battle. And now the Steelers will hopefully have their franchise guy since Ben Roethlisberger. Christian, what do you think about the Steelers bringing back Aaron Rodgers for possibly his final year? And what do you think about the 2 quarterbacks that are going to be underneath him?
I was never a fan of it. I mean, it was always in the back of everyone's mind that he could go back to Pittsburgh, and that's what they were holding out for, I guess, at this point. I always thought their best solution going forward was seeing what they have this year in either Will Howard or Drew Aller. It either you have a starting caliber quarterback that you find, or next year, you got to take a guy. On the same, on the other hand, like you said, the Steelers are getting older. Rodgers is their best chance of winning. Do I think he's their best chance of winning a Super Bowl? No. I don't think Rodgers is that player anymore. I don't think he's been that player in a long time. But for Pittsburgh to continue winning games, Rodgers is their best bet. I just don't agree with it for like a future stand of it.
Yeah, we'll have to see how the season shakes out for the Steelers and how the future does unfold for them after Aaron Rodgers. And moving on to a team that is in a similar situation, but not as veteran as a quarterback, but the Minnesota Vikings bring in Kyler Murray, and J.J. McCarthy is still there as a young quarterback who is looking to prove himself. They make a splash this week and go get Juwan Jennings to bolster that offense even more for Kyler Murray. Most likely is going to be the starter. I guess there probably will be a QB battle in training camp, but I believe Kyler will beat out JJ pretty easily. But that Minnesota Vikings team, a lot of people, I think, just don't remember that the Vikings obviously were not good. I'm not going to sit here and say they were a phenomenal team. They didn't make the playoffs last year. However, the Vikings went 9-8 last year. The Minnesota Vikings had no consistency at the quarterback position. Max Brosmer was their starting quarterback and actually even won a game. I think getting now Jauan Jennings, pairing him with Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and TJ Hawkinson, this offense is probably the most complete star-studded offense in the league, or at least one of them. And I believe Kyler Murray is going to love having all these weapons, as he really didn't, in my opinion, never really had great weapons in Arizona. He had DeAndre Hopkins, and that was pretty much it. He never had multiple great guys that he can go to, in my opinion. He had James Conner at running back, but I don't think that's too great. And then obviously towards the end now of his tenure at Arizona, he had Trey McBride and Marvin Harrison. But I just don't think he ever had that consistency of knowing he had 4 options to throw the ball to. So I do believe getting Jauan Jennings is a great move for the Vikings, and a team that was not that bad last year, going 9-8, now getting another weapon to help out their new quarterback. Christian, what do you think about the move of Jauan Jennings to the Vikings? It is a 1-year deal, so I do think this is a deal for Jauan Jennings to prove himself and then go get another long-term deal. How do you think he's going to shake out in Minnesota?
It definitely helps. Like you said, this is definitely, without a doubt, even though he had Hopkins, this is definitely, if Kyler wins the starting job, which all signs are pointing to he is, this is the best weapons he's had in his career. And I was never a giant Kyler fan, but I do know that he is capable of winning football games. The Vikings, unfortunately, last year at the quarterback position, they did finish 9-8, but they like you said, they had no consistency at the quarterback position. I think Kyler can really bring that. Even without Jauan Jennings, the Vikings offense would have had studs everywhere, but having him now, he can throw anywhere, and it doesn't even matter. But I didn't expect him to go to the Vikings, but I mean, it's huge for him. It's huge for the Vikings. We'll see how it plans out.
Yeah, and a team that exactly went 9-8, never had consistency at the quarterback position. We'll see how they can do this year with a guy like Kyler, and now bringing Jauan Jennings in. And another team that has that consistency at quarterback, but really has not had that much consistency for weapons for that quarterback. The Los Angeles Chargers bring in David Njoku to be a consistent weapon now for Justin Herbert. I think this is a great move by the Chargers. We saw rookie Arande Gradson kind of break out a little bit, but not too much. He had some flashes last year, but wasn't really consistent. And I think bringing David Njoku is just a great weapon to add to that roster for Justin Herbert, and it's a great mentor for Arande Gradson as well. David Njoku has been in the league for a while, and having 2 tight ends, in my opinion, is the best problem to have in the NFL, because now you just have 2 guys that could go out there and catch passes across the middle and get hit by a linebacker and hold on to that ball. So I think it's a great landing spot for Njoku, and is going to be a great help for Justin Herbert. If he can stay healthy on that offense, Harbaugh loves his tight end. You saw what he did with Colston Loveland in Michigan, and how great he's been now in the NFL so far through his rookie season. How do you feel about David Njoku heading to the Chargers, Christian? And do you think he'll be a consistent weapon this year for Justin Herbert?
I think he could be a weapon. Consistent, I don't know. They love running 12 personnel. Obviously 12 personnel. They love running 2 tight end sets. It's definitely an upgrade over Charlie Kolar, or I think Will Dissly they had last year. It's definitely an upgrade. But Gadsden, he's going to be their starter this year. He showed a lot of promise last year as a rookie. I expect him to be even better this year. It's just more help for Justin Herbert. They love running the ball a lot. They love running multiple tight ends. And it's only 1 year. It's not like nothing bad's going to happen if he doesn't play the level that they expect him to, but he should be on the field a good amount.
Yeah, only on a 1-year deal for $8 million. It's definitely a high reward, low risk deal for the Chargers. And exactly, they love running that 2 tight end personnel, so hopefully Njoku could help contribute to that. And now heading to a team that is not going to have as great of a season, I believe, as the 3 teams that we just spoke about. The Miami Dolphins make big news in extending De'Von Achane for 4 years, $64 million. He stays in Miami, a player that once Waddle got traded, a lot of people thought that the Dolphins would move on from Achane, just because paying a running back when you really have nothing else around him on offense, and then really you don't even have anything going for you on defense, doesn't really make the most sense. And to be honest, this contract, in my opinion, still doesn't make the most sense. He's now the 3rd highest paid running back in the NFL, surpassing Breece Hall right after Breece Hall signed his contract. I believe De'Von Achane is going to have a Breece Hall type year. He already had a great year last year, but more in the sense of, I think he's going to be the weapon for this team like Breece Hall was last year when Garrett Wilson went down for the Jets. Achane is going to be, I feel like, just run into the ground this year by the Miami Dolphins, and I don't think that is a great thing to do when you sign a running back to a long-term contract. So we'll have to see, just because they did not really improve their wide receiver position too well. They did get some late round receivers in the draft. However, I just think that Achane is going to be a huge guy for them in the running game and in the passing game. And we could maybe see him be utilized like Christian McCaffrey, I believe. However, I just don't think it's a smart move to re-sign a running back for that type of money when you have really a question mark at quarterback in Malik Willis and just nothing else around him on offense, and not even having a defense backing up that offense. Christian, what do you believe about the HN contract? And in all, I do believe he deserves this contract. I don't think he's been a bad player at all. He's been consistently good throughout his career once he got his shot, and he definitely deserves this contract. However, I just don't think it was a good contract to give him. Christian, how do you think Achane will do this year for the Miami Dolphins, and how do you think this contract is going to pan out over the years?
I mean, obviously, everyone looks at it to running back. Running backs, they tend to not warrant the money that other positions do because, like you said, they can always teams can always find more. Unfortunately for the Dolphins, they're not going to find another De'Von Achane anywhere, whether in the draft or any. Since he's entered the league, he's led, I think, 5 yards a carry, I think, in his first 3 years. It's higher than every other player in the league, at least at the running back position. He's one of the most explosive players in football. When you get rid of a guy like Waddle and De'Von Achane, you have to lock him in long term, especially for Malik Willis. And like you said, they might run him through the ground, but he's also an elite pass catcher. He's with, they have 3 rookie receivers, I think, this year. He's probably going to catch like 70 to 80 balls. They're going to use him a lot. So what's funny about this is it helps out Bijan and it helps out Gibbs. And I wonder what the Falcons and the Lions are looking at now that they know, wow, we have to pay more than that for both of our back. This is kind of the baseline now for what every other running back is going to get, especially Bijan and Gibbs. So it'll be funny to see how that pans out.
Yeah, that's definitely a big point to hit on there. That exactly. We see Breece Hall and De'Von Achane get these massive contracts, and no shade to them. As I said before, they deserve these contracts. They both proved themselves on teams that really needed them when they had nothing else really going for them. But exactly, running backs like Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs are much better than the two of them. And you're seeing a running back get paid $64 million for 4 years. I mean, Gibbs and Bijan will most definitely, I think, break Saquon's record, and they will be, no doubt, probably the 2 highest paid running backs when they get their extension. And moving on to the team that made the deal with the Dolphins earlier in the offseason for Jalen Waddle, the Denver Broncos, not making too much noise, but a little bit of a rumor that is circulating the NFL is that Von Miller is looking to return to the Denver Broncos. That Von Miller, a legend for the Broncos, probably will have his number put in the Ring of Honor, I think, one day in that stadium. And he wants to go back. He wants to have a homecoming in Denver. And Nick Bonito, you've seen now publicly say he would love that. He would welcome Von Miller back. And it would be a very interesting move for the Broncos, as I believe they don't need Von Miller. It's a move, though, that would just be something that the fans would love. And he will definitely, though, bring invaluable experience to that defense and just make a defense that was great last year even better. So it would be definitely cool to see that reunion happen. Christian, what do you think about that reunion possibly happening? Very similar to the Odell Beckham situation shaping up the Giants.
It would be a good reunion. They already have Bonito and Cooper are already like elite off the edge. They also have Ellis, who they drafted 2 years ago, I believe, and they signed Tillman from the USFL. But obviously, having a guy like Von Miller helps out everyone. Nick Bonito could become better. Jonathan Cooper could be better, even though they're both already elite. But it'll be fun to see how, if he does make his way back to Denver, if they can actually, make a run this year, especially if Bo Nix can stay healthy.
Yeah, and bringing Von Miller back for that would be amazing to see. See him get possibly his second ring with that team would be very cool. And moving on now to the schedule releases, as that rounds up most of the news that happened this week in the NFL, pretty much all of the news that was major. We did see some rookies sign contracts, some first-round picks and even later-round picks sign their contracts, as that will be a ongoing thing up until training camp starts. Heading to the schedule releases, we saw a couple of great ones and a couple of bad ones. To start off, my personal favorite, I really enjoyed the Raiders doing a stepbrother parody with Fernando Mendoza and Kirk Cousins. Some great moments in there, having Kirk Cousins say, "You have to call me Kirk O'Chains," him teaching him about some Raiders culture. I think it was just a great way to kind of show that camaraderie that we're going to see Kirk Cousins and Mendoza show this year between each other. So I think it's a great way to kind of show that relationship to the public and how it's already being fostered. And then probably the worst one that was released, and I know Rivera, Christian, sorry, you will probably have a different opinion of what your favorite one was, but one that we both agreed was the worst one was the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals put out a Zoom-style schedule release video that was pretty much completely made with AI. I think there were some human elements in it, but it was made mostly with AI, and it was just lazy and just not fun at all. We saw some other videos that we're not going to talk about that weren't great, but it wasn't made with AI. At least teams still put some effort into it and used real people to make it. Seeing a team do this just makes me upset from a standpoint of there are so many people that are part of the creative team and marketing teams at these NFL teams, and to see them go that route, probably cut costs to do it, and probably even saw people lose jobs over that because they didn't need them to produce a video, I just don't think is a great way to go, and we'll see what they can do next year for their schedule release video. What was your personal favorite, Christian? We'll dive into other ones next, and also, how did you feel about the Cardinals?
I thought the Cardinals one was it's definitely unique, but it's definitely the worst one. There was zero human element to it, which is very weird. It was just the mascots and just, I don't know. It was incredibly weird. My favorite, I have two. Like, I think the Chargers make really good ones every single year, especially the Halo. I'm a big gamer. So seeing the Halo and they had like little cutscenes and stuff and little like Easter eggs was pretty cool seeing that. But the Chargers always make good ones. And I also like the Jets, not as much as the Chargers, but the Jets one I found very soothing. Like I actually watched it fully through. I was like, okay, this is pretty cool how they did like all the paint stuff. It was pretty cool. But Cardinals definitely the worst. Chargers the best. I'll put Jets number 2.
Yeah, and diving into the Jets, they did do that little kind of painting montage where they mix the colors of the teams that they're playing this season. We also saw the Bears do a paint-inspired one, having Rome Odunze cosplay Bob Ross. That was pretty funny as well. I thought that was a good twist for your schedule release. And yeah, the Chargers, we saw the Chargers just win it again. The Chargers do that Halo-inspired video, and we saw them be the only team that referenced the Mike Vrabel and Diana Rossini situation. It wasn't a major reference, but when they showed that they're playing the Patriots, they had, because I want to say, correct me if I'm wrong, it was like made to look like they were playing it on Xbox, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, in the corner of their release video when they were playing the Patriots, they kind of had like an Xbox notification pop up that said message from the NY Post when they were showing that they're playing the Patriots. So it is a very subtle way to talk about it, but I think that was a pretty funny kind of, humorous way to talk about it and not really showcase it, because doing that, they would have received some backlash, but that was, I think, the perfect subtle way to do it. And they also addressed, when they announced they're playing the Bills, the Keon Coleman cookie clip that Cam Newton says that about, I forget the exact clip, but, everybody loves you in Buffalo and you're the cookie guy and now, you're not good and this and that. They literally remade that clip in Halo. So that was pretty funny. And I think they definitely did win schedule release week again. Some other ones that were great. We saw the Atlanta Falcons do these This Is Sports Center parody, but did it as This Is the Atlanta Falcons. And in my opinion, some of the best ones from that little video were they had Drake London meet a new worker named Kendrick, and they referenced Drake versus Kendrick Lamar and kind of had Drake London get a little upset at the guy. So that was pretty funny. And then they also had Bijan Robinson kind of just juking out poor office employees just trying to do their jobs in the middle of a hallway. So I think that was a pretty good one, and they made some cool references in it. We also then saw the Ravens. Actually, in my opinion, I did say the Raiders was the best one. I think it was the best one as a release video, but probably the best experience one, I would say, was the Ravens. The Ravens had Zay Flowers crash a wedding and announce their release video with Raven fans at their wedding. I think that's great. I mean, they looked so surprised and were so happy that he was there. And I think that's just a hilarious way to announce your schedule for the year. And that couple will remember that for the rest of their lives and just be like, wow, that was so awesome meeting Zay Flowers. What did you think about the Ravens one? I thought it was a very cool kind of intimate video.
It's definitely different. Like you said, the experience probably for all the fans there was probably amazing. So it's definitely the complete opposite of what the Cardinals did with no human interaction, but it's okay.
Yeah, and then moving to a team in that division, both teams actually in that division, the Bengals and the Browns. So the Bengals do a movie trailer-esque schedule release video. It was kind of boring, not really great in my opinion. Looked kind of low effort. They just used a bunch of clips from the last season and just put their opponents over them. So I don't think it was that great. The only kind of cool thing in that was that when they first showed they're playing the Steelers week 3, they grayed out Mike Tomlin shaking Zach Taylor's hand. Obviously, Mike Tomlin no longer with the Pittsburgh Steelers, was one of the biggest firings or step downs of a coach this past offseason. And then the Browns actually did a very creative one with YouTuber Matt Pat. They had him in a classic arcade playing Street Fighter with a bunch of people and announcing their opponents through Street Fighter. I thought that was a great one as well, and exactly as you just touched on, Christian, it was the human element that was great there compared to what the Cardinals didn't do. And then the Packers also went with a animated video, which was much better than using AI, in my opinion. It was kind of like a stop-motion looking animated video featuring their players, and it was pretty funny. It was like a little fight scene thing for each opponent, and I thought that was great. And then rounding out these schedule release videos, the Colts do a Simpsons-inspired one using clips from The Simpsons to announce their schedule. I thought that was great. A lot of fans of that TV show loved the Indianapolis Colts schedule release video. And then the Patriots, a very simple one to be honest, but a great one in my opinion. We saw the Patriots send their players to Six Flags and have them announce their schedule on rides. It was great. You had them on roller coasters, saying who the opponents were, and they all looked like they have an absolute blast. And I believe that's kind of a great, not even... I would say it's not lazy, but it's not so high production. It's kind of that great happy medium where they just sent their players to have a great time and announce their schedule. Any other videos, Christian, to you that stood out in the NFL this week for their schedule release?
None really stood out to me. I was going to touch on the fact that I thought the Patriots one was pretty cool with the roller coaster. I thought that was pretty sick with the players. The Packers, definitely the better animate. Well, the Cardinals, it's not really... Is AI technically animated? I don't know. How does that... Is that like... I don't know.
Yeah, I guess it's an animated video in a sense, but exactly, it was made with AI, so not really.
But the Packers one was
no
cool because they were like fighting
it.
and stuff over the thing, so it was pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I think it was great use of like stop motion animation for a schedule release video. It did definitely look very cool. And now rounding out our NFL coverage for this week's episode, we will be heading to the NBA to dive into the NBA playoffs. And before we get into the playoff matchups, we're going to talk about how Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has won MVP again, back-to-back. And he has just been my opinion now, the face of the NBA. He has just been consistently great for 2 years. A lot of people don't love the way he plays as he does reach the free throw line a lot. However, I don't think he's an insane foul baiter. I really think it's just a lot of calls are what ends up happening, and a lot of people get upset about that. The refs favor him in that sense. I do think there's worse foul baiters in the league than SGA. Christian, how do you feel about SGA winning MVP for the second time now in his career and doing it back-to-back? And now heading into the conference final?
I'm not surprised. He's the best player on the best team in basketball. I don't agree. I believe he is a foul baiter. But at the same time, he still gets like 12 baskets a game. So even without the free throws, it's like he'll still average a good amount. So that argument really doesn't really make sense for me when people say that. But he'll always get the narrative of foul baiting. That's the only reason. But you don't win MVPs just by foul baiting. He still is arguably a top 2 to 3 player in the NBA. So it's well deserved, I'd say.
Yeah, and heading in now to a series against the San Antonio Spurs, a team who has Victor Wembanyama, who we saw win Defensive Player of the Year and was potentially going to be the MVP this year, but he does end up losing it to SGA. That is the only conference finals that is set. We are recording this episode before the Cavaliers take on the Detroit Pistons, so we will see who takes on the Knicks in the Eastern Conference Finals. But heading into that series out west, Thunder versus Spurs, it is what everybody wanted. It's what we got. And I think this is going to be an absolute great series. My opinion, better than what the NBA Finals will end up being. As I said on a previous episode, I do believe that this pretty much is the NBA Finals. Whichever team comes out of this series, I think will beat either the Knicks, Cavs, or Pistons in the NBA Finals. And I think this series probably goes to 6 games, and I think the Thunder come out as champions of the West and head back to the NBA Finals for their second year in a row. I believe this purely off of, you look at the Spurs roster, it's very similar to where the Thunder were a couple years ago. It's a young roster. They have experienced guys on the team like De'Aaron Fox. However, I think it is still a young roster with players like Stephon Castle, Dylan Harper, and Victor Wembanyama. They do also have another experienced guy in the sense of Keldon Johnson, who's been very good for them, and Devin Vassell. I just think that they're a little bit too young still, and that the experienced, now NBA Finals even experienced, Oklahoma City Thunder team will end up coming out on top, and we will, though, see probably a extremely good playoff series between the two teams. Christian, how do you think this series is going to shake out between these two teams, and who do you think will end up advancing to the finals?
I wanted to touch on exactly what you said. I think the Spurs are in almost identical situations than the Thunder were last year, where I wanted the Thunder to get over the hump last year. I wanted them to win. I was like, oh, they have all these young talents. Now I feel the exact same way with the Spurs. I'm like, now I want the Spurs to beat the Thunder. I want the Spurs to win it. I want Wemby to win. There is a lot of talk. I heard in the interview when Wemby said that they dominated the Thunder in every game, which they did during the regular season. But unfortunately, regular season is not the same thing as the playoffs. And the Thunder have looked very unbeatable, and they don't even have Jalen Williams, their second best player. So they have a lot of depth, they have a lot of talent, they have good coaching. Sometimes they have the refs on their side, but you didn't hear me say that. But I want the Spurs to win. I think it's going to go to 6 games like you said, and I think the Thunder are going to take it.
So you hear it here first that each of us do believe the Thunder will end up advancing to the NBA Finals, and in 6 games. Pretty ironic that we both go 6 games there. And yeah, I do agree. I honestly could not really care who wins this series in the sense that I want them both win, as you said. I do love SGA actually as a player. I think he's, my opinion, a lot of people say he's not that entertaining to watch just by the way he plays at Sandham. I think he is entertaining to watch. If, as you said, he makes 12 to, my opinion, 15 baskets a game, and those baskets aren't just lazy layups that just roll in or something. No, he's making amazing mid-range shots that are almost impossible to land, and he lands them. So I really would be excited to see either team advance, as also watching Wembanyama play, seeing him possibly break the ankles of somebody, which he should not be able to do at that height, or then just get an insane chase down block. I mean, he is so exciting to watch. So we'll see who advances out of those two teams in the West. And moving to the East, we know that the Knicks are in the conference finals. They've been waiting. That has been the Knicks theme this playoffs, that they've been waiting for their opponents. And that is invaluable. Having a lot of rest time is huge. However, some people do believe being in the heat of the battle is huge, as you are game ready and not in rest mode. The Cavs and Pistons are heading for Game 7 tonight. We will see who ends up coming out of that series. I personally believe the Pistons get it done at home in Game 7. I don't think Detroit is going to let this one go, and I think this has been what Detroit's been this entire playoff run. They've had gritty series, and I think we'll see another gritty series between them and the Knicks if they do end up in the Eastern Conference Finals. With the Magic, it went to 7 and that they had a battle back from. With the Cavs, they were up 2-0, and now they're at a Game 7. I do believe that Cade Cunningham and the Pistons will get it done against the Cleveland Cavaliers. I think the Cavaliers has just been too inconsistent. We did see James Harden go on a great run for the Cavs, which is why they're in this Game 7 situation. However, James Harden in Game 7s historically has not been great. As that viral clip on Twitter, which if the Cavs lose, I think will definitely circulate, where the Clippers announcer was saying how James Harden, you're not the answer, you're not the system, you're the problem. I think James Harden will probably show that tonight, and we will see how that game ends up going. And Donovan Mitchell has been extremely inconsistent in this series, honestly pretty bad in this series. So we'll have to see how that game goes tonight, but I think because of all those factors, we will see the Pistons come out on top. Christian, who do you think that the Knicks will be playing in the Eastern Conference Finals?
At this point, it's a toss-up. At this point, I firmly believe this is the Knicks. If they don't make it to the finals this year, it's on them. Like, this was their year to get there. I feel like the East has been not weak, but I think Detroit and Cleveland are both a step below the Knicks in talent and not coaching, actually. No, Knicks terrible coaching, but I think the Knicks, I think this is the year that they make it to the finals. Like you said before, I don't think they beat any of the West teams. But with that being said, I think Detroit is going to win. Unless Cleveland can surprise us. I mean, like you said, Cleveland, they won 3 straight. They lost Game 6. They kind of gave it away at the end. And Detroit kind of blew them out. But it's all going to come down to Donovan Mitchell and James Harden, 2 guys who are historically not great when it comes to clutching in the playoffs, especially Donovan Mitchell, who Cleveland at this point, they're still waiting for a vintage Donovan Mitchell moment, which they haven't seen since they've acquired him from Utah. So I believe Detroit's going to win. I believe they're going to play the Knicks. I think the Knicks are going to win. And I think the Knicks are going to lose in the finals. But like I said, this is the Knicks. The East is theirs to lose. I mean, it's kind of not handed to them, but it's best situation for them.
I completely agree with that Knicks take exactly. It is their East to lose. The Knicks got the Atlanta Hawks, who, my opinion, even though they were not the lowest seed between the Magic and the Sixers being ranked lower than them, I think they were the worst team in the first round of the playoffs. And the Knicks got them, and they beat them decisively. then the Knicks get very lucky that Jason Tatum does not play in that Game 7 against the 76ers. And I think if he did, we do see a different outcome and that the Celtics would have been playing the Knicks in the second round. And not to say that the Celtics would have destroyed the Knicks, but I do think the Celtics would have had a much better series than the 76ers did against the Knicks, obviously being swept by the Knicks. So exactly, the Knicks have almost had the East handed to them. 2 very easy opponents in the first 2 rounds, and now 2 opponents that, whichever one they get, are going to be much more gassed out than the Knicks are, as they've had plenty of time to rest and get prepared for this Eastern Conference Finals. But as I stated before, some people believe rest is great, and then others believe that you'd rather be in the heat of the battle, ready to go in game mode, which the Knicks may not be, at least for game 1. That is typically how it goes, and that's why in the NFL you do see a lot more where, and even in college football, where bye teams end up losing because they haven't played in a little bit. With the NBA, that's not as big of a deal because if you drop game 1, you still have 5 more chances to prove that you can go win. So I do believe the Knicks will probably make it to the NBA Finals. I will say, though, if the Detroit Pistons do end up being the team that comes out of this series against the Cavs, I do think the Pistons can give the Knicks a run for their money. I don't think the Cavs will. I think the Cavs just don't match up great with the Knicks, and I think the Pistons match up pretty well and could give them a run for their money, but I do think the Knicks will make it out of the East and end up in the NBA Finals. So our prediction as a podcast is the Knicks and Thunder will be your NBA Finals matchup. And as we said before, I do think that the Thunder will I think we'll see them go back-to-back. Christian, how would you feel if the Thunder do go back-to-back? And where does this kind of then put SGA in players-wise top currently in the league? As we said, he's definitely a top 3 player. Does this make him the best player in the league if he goes and wins back-to-back championships off of back-to-back MVPs?
I do believe, yes, either the Thunder or the Spurs are coming out of the West, and one of them's going to win. I'm going to say the Thunder, though. What does this do for SGA? I think he's already elite. This definitely puts him, he's probably at this point, if they go back-to-back MVPs, he's probably the best player in Thunder history. I'm trying to think of any other names it possibly could be. It's probably him. He's definitely etched in Thunder history forever. I think already, even if they don't win this year, he's already a top 3 player in basketball right now. But all time, I don't know. I think it's too early to tell still. He's still very young, but he's definitely... Is it crazy to say he'd be top 75, top 80? I don't know. Maybe not, but I mean, time will tell to see if the Thunder can even win it again this year.
Exactly. Yeah, top 75 is a solid estimate. Put him all time. Yeah, I was more saying currently out of the player pool in the NBA that I think he'd probably be
I think regardless, he's still top 3, I think. Regardless.
Exactly. Yeah. So we'll have to see how the playoffs shake out. Those are our predictions, though, for the rest of the playoffs. When we get back to you next Monday, we will have seen who came out of that Cavs and Pistons series and kind of where the 2 conference finals matchups are at. Unless there's a sweep there, they should both still be ongoing. I think even if there is a sweep, it might be like at that game 4 where there could be a sweep. So I think we'll still be in both series. So we are going to be very excited to be talking about the conference finals next week. And that is going to do it for this episode of the podcast. As we've said previously, this will be shorter episodes just due to the lack of ongoing NFL news, and obviously there's no NFL games going on, so we don't have much to talk about with the draft and combine and free agency concluding. The biggest parts of the offseason are done, and to be honest, the last part of the offseason is done. Aaron Rodgers is back. That was what a lot of people were waiting on, to kind of be like, all right, we know what every team looks like now. So that's going to do it. As we always say, you can find us on most places you find podcasts, such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. You can also find us on Instagram, X, and TikTok under the handle @PodSpitBallin, where we post daily clips from the podcast where you can see our hottest takes on your favorite teams. And as always, everybody, keep spitballing.